planning by faith actors. Can you hear me well? Also from here, I don't need to move close to the mic. It's okay? Perfect. Okay. Great. So my name is Ferdinand Gierke. I work for Bread for the World. We saw that there's another Bread for the World that will present here on Saturday. We are the German Bread for the World, the development arm of the Lutheran Churches of Germany. We work in more than 80 countries with mainly faith-based organization. The crème de la crème you can find here assembled today, who are our main partners to talk on climate adaptation. Before I present them, I want to start this talk by briefly introducing why is our topic important. So, okay, now that the technology is failing me. Just give me a second. I have a slide prepared. Sorry, very sorry for that. I was just saying, we are Bread for the World, working in more than 80 countries, and other than the name suggests, we don't only focus on food and poverty, but we work on a whole range of issues, ranging from health, human rights, and most prominently, of course, also climate change, all rooted in our Lutheran faith to care for creation. So before I start to elaborate why adaptation is so crucial at this specific COP29, maybe I can give a short insight into how faith inspires our work. The whole idea of this event is to do two things at the same time. On the one hand, we try to showcase best practice, practical examples from the ground, from developing countries, what are some of these practical adaptation planning approaches. And then at the same time, we're trying to feed in how these specific best practice examples are inspired by faith. So at COP29, we have, of course, the overall topic is finance. But as we hear day and day from developing countries, adaptation finance is a key aspect of finance that is lacking. There has been the pledge to double adaptation finance by developed countries, which has not been fulfilled as of yet. There's a great gap. So with this event, we'd like to play into this debate and demand more adaptation finance. We need adaptation as a specific sub-goal of the NCQG. We need a specific number for adaptation finance in this goal. We also need significant progress on the indicators under the UAE BILEM work program. Also, of course, national adaptation plans are being developed more and more. Developing countries need more support with them. And of course, what is a key aspect also of today's session is the debate about locally led adaptation. That we need to give more direct access to adaptation finance to communities themselves and have them drive the processes and their own projects. So, but more on this later by my fellow colleagues. I would like to introduce them. First, we have Mr. Milton Ogada from Christian Aid in Kenya. He will share about his experiences of Christian Aid Kenya and partners on different levels of adaptation policy engagement, local, national, etc. Then we have Ms. Maurice Makdi next to him from Bless in Egypt, who will tell us more about local adaptation planning. So really at the community level, and how this is inspired by Faith, especially how we're getting from a risk assessment to the adaptation measures. Next up, we have Mr. Palash Sakar from CCDB in Bangladesh, who will make the link from the local to the national. And in the end, we have Ms. Sarah Sava from Gopa Dirt in Syria, who will share a bit about adaptation in very complex conflict settings. So how is adaptation possible there, and how does faith maybe help or hinder these efforts? So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Milton Ogada from Christian Aid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ferdinand, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Good. My name is Milton. As I have been introduced, I work for Christian Aid Kenya program. Christian Aid is an international NGO who are working with both faith and none. I think that is quite important for you to note, because it will form somehow the basis of what I'm going to talk about. When you talk about all faith and none, it means we do not exclude anyone in the work that we do. And today's topic, then, I'm going to talk about the role of faith actors in climate policy influence. Of course, we do a lot of policy work, both at the national and at sub-national levels, and also at the grassroots level of engagements. But of course, the most important thing to note is that what we do in a large way informs the policy decisions that are happening both at the national level and of course in the global space, like this kind of setting. So I don't know whether it's okay, thank you. I wanted to start by a famous quote from Gustavus Beth, of course, the co-founder of the Natural Resource Defense Council. He used to think that top environmental problems were climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem collapse. And he thought that 30 years of good science would be able to address or solve those problems. Then he realized he was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with these issues, then, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. And the scientists don't know how to do that. Unless in the event where there is a scientist mixed with some understanding of issues of religion and spiritual guidance. Of course, our outline talks about introduction, looking at the role of faith and religion in climate change, adaptation, the potential for the faith action in climate change, looking at the issues of adaptation, and of course, grassroots actions. We are looking at a case study on Green Anglicans, and of course, our Christian Aid prophetic voice. In my introduction, then, I'll look at faith-based actors have historically had a very important role in health and education. As you are most aware, in most of the developing countries, we'll find a lot of institutions or higher learning institutions, or even the lower ones, that have been established and supported by faith institutions to support issues of education and, of course, advocate for some health interventions. So this is evidence in the numerous faith-based schools, hospitals, and of course NGOs that are working within the community setups. So it is surprising that they are often overlooked as key actors in climate action. But of course the potential for faith actors in the climate space encounters ranging from local to global levels, like I talked about during introduction. and the conservation in the climate space is evolving, with more of faith actors being engaged really to inform or change the narrative going forward. So faith-based organizations and communities have a unique perspective on climate issues and can provide moral and ethical framework addressing these issues, because it's through faith gathering that people find refuge, particularly when it comes to challenges that they're facing, be it those that are caused by climate change or not. At the front line of climate crisis, the faith-based initiatives can be effective in providing climate change adaptation and raising awareness about the issues within the local communities, because faith provides platforms for very many people to gather. And now that we work with all faith and none, then of course it means we are having everybody taken care of, and we are moving along with so many. So these initiatives can also be effective in advocating for policy change on adaptation at the local and the national level. So we have undertaken quite a number of policy advocacy on adaptation that we do to ensure that our communities are well prepared. And of course these policies, it's quite noisy. Yes, I think that's much better. Okay, so thank you. So I was saying that at the global level, then the faith-based organizations play also an important role in providing dialogue and collaboration between different groups, and in advocating for policies and programs to address climate adaptation issues. So some of the potential for faith actions in climate change are centered around different perspectives. Of course, we look at the aspect of accessibility, where they are to be found in the most remote rural villages, in the poorest pre-urban communities, and in the wealthiest suburbs. So we understand that faith is rooted in our communities, and for purposes of accessibility, it's easier then to engage at that level. Acceptability also is built around the locally based, with well understood norms, and of course the values that faith preach. And they have a high level of acceptability, sometimes higher than even the state or even the foreign organizations that work within their different setups. So the agency then, they can have a positive role in facilitating behavior change based on the teachings of their beliefs. Of course, affirming hope, I've talked about that in my introduction, because people would find refuge and seek help in faith setup environments, or rather the churches or institutions of faith. So affordability, also members are often motivated by the faith and willing to volunteer their time and resources. So there's not much to really invest when it comes to how faith then could be able to inform adaptation actions or policy influence at that level then. So I'm giving an example of grassroots action, which is a case study of on Green Anglicans. And here, Green Anglicans is a movement of environmental network of the Anglican churches of many countries, including Kenya, where I come from. And of course, the movement is different to both secular and faith-based institutions, in that the motivation for action is based on the teaching of the Bible and Christianity. So there are three levels of activities that this network is focusing on. And here we are looking at the spiritually based environmental education. They're also working on local and community activities, and of course the national and international advocacy interventions or other actions. So under the spiritual based environmental education, the Anglican Church has sought to influence church members through producing resources which can be used for prayers, sermons, and of course inspires actions. Resources and materials have been developed targeting the children and the youth, and of course the clergy, among others. And most importantly, the clergies are quite a critical target because they gather and share information which is received with a lot of respect and convictions among the people who follow them. So what is most important here is where we are targeting the clergies and even the church leaders who have got some level of knowledge, and that's where we say it is important for education, that not only to the communities but also to the church leaders who are able then to share relevant information and of course be able to convince the masses to follow proper adaptation steps. So for instance, for the young people, a manual was developed called Care for Creation, that's under the Anglican faith, which starts with the Bible passages that then encourages the youth to connect the passages with their reality in the role they play or debates. So additionally, clergy are trained on eco-theology, and of course that's also found within Christian Aid setup, where we also have the global theology advisors who have been well trained and they're able to guide, particularly through the teachings of the Bible, on how to best approach the adaptation issues. Local and community actions, the faith are encouraged to make climate action plans which will vary according to their context, such as tree planting. And of course, to mobilize people to take climate action, several strategies have been used, including centered efforts on certain environmental times in a year. So severally, the development arms of Anglican Church in Kenya have been involved in design and implementation of climate actions at the community level. So at the national level then also they engage, and also even at the global space. So the United Nations representative enabling members of the church to attend the United Nations Environment Assembly, and that is Anglican Communion. So, and as they attend these meetings, then they are able to get to understand what is going on within the UNFCCC framework arrangements and the conversations that are foregoing. So at both the national and regional, the church can be a voice of the people in championing climate action. And of course, from our perspective in terms of how we work, also we look at this from the national level, where Christian Aid Kenya collaborates with faith-based partners. We collaborate with faith-based partners, organizations to engage on policy issues with governments and also agencies. So we try to bring moral authority and a value-based perspective, which can resonate well with decisions that are made at that level. So we advocate for proper climate resilient policies that reflect ethical considerations around climate justice and equity. So faith actors play a leading role in public consultations, campaigns, of course, and policy forums, where we are able to highlight the needs of vulnerable communities, those who are on the front line of climate crisis, and be able to support policies that aims to address such challenges. So then at the national level, we also have the subnational level, which in Kenya we call the county level of governance, where we work also with the faith actors at that point on adaptation policies, be it at the national and the local context. So here we engage both the local government and traditional leaders. Okay, I'll be finishing in a short while. They facilitate access to government officials and of course the stakeholders, because from Kenya, where I come from, you realize that faith leaders have a voice, and it is easier for them really to consult and find a platform with the leadership, just in case there's need to influence some policy processes. Then it is much easier as compared to whether the CSOs or even the individual citizens. So at the grassroots it also happens, and this is where they are deeply embedded, and I've talked about this during my introduction, making them very influential partners at that point on matters adaptation. So we largely partner with them to enhance awareness and campaigns, and also facilitate community dialogues. And of course, this one gives them a comfortable platform that they are able to associate. So on my last slide then, I'm talking about Christian Aid as a faith and right-based organization that recognizes biblical heritage of prophetic voices. So one of our framework is the 3 P's on the prophetic voice, where we want to also, we use the prophetic voice to call for specific agendas, particularly on speaking truth to power, to to be able to address the injustices that are caused by climate change. So it supports and derives inspirations from the courage of women and men of faith who spoke out for the truth and justice. And of course, we continue to see this emancipate itself as new leaders, church leaders come up to be able to continue speaking the truth and also convey the message that comes from the masses. So Christian Aid is a very clear that it wants the voices of its partners and the affected communities to be the voice that is heard on push for climate justice. So I want to stop at that point and then thank you for listening. I'll be happy to receive questions much later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milton, for this very rich and inspiring presentation. Yes, I forgot to mention in the beginning, we want this to be an interactive panel. So at the end, we will have 15 minutes for questions, answers, and a dialogue to emerge. So with that being said, let me invite Ms. Mariz Makti to the stage from Bless in Egypt. You have the floor.
Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here with you, and I have to mention that it's first time for me here in the COP, and I'm so excited that's for all the events that's happening here. First of all, I'm from Egypt. I will speak today about the locally led adaptation in Egypt, which is experienced by the Coptic Orthodox Church at Plus, and I wanted to let you know who we are. We are the Bishopric of Public, Ecumenical and Social Services. It's PLES. It's the developmental arm of the Coptic Orthodox Church in Egypt, which established in 1962. And our vision is to have empowered, sustainable communities that accept diversity and enjoy living with dignity. PLES operates its programmatic activities in communities in urban areas and rural areas in Egypt, with focus on the more marginalized groups and communities. And for PLES mission, it works to improve the quality of the life and social equity, empower communities to be resilient to crisis, and to contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And that happens when we have a governing principles that comes from our love for God, which drives us to love and respect human dignity, peace and tolerance, respect God's creation, transparency and accountability, belief in people's capabilities, creativity, power of give, and volunteering. And I wanted to highlight, here, so you can see. I wanted to highlight that in this year, 2024, we upgrade and develop our strategy to 2028 to place a great emphasis on environmental sustainability. And plus strategy focusing on achieving key results, which are main 4 results relating to health and well-being, lifelong learning, economic and environmental sustainability, and community capacity development. And climate action and environmentally sustainability are a cross-cutting priorities for all these results. And climate action is also programmatic areas of focus as a part of key PLES programs, and we have 2 key programs. The first one is the Agriculture Development Program, and the second one is the Environmental Protection Program, and I will give you a brief at the end about the 2 programs, what we are doing in. And what I wanted to highlight, that the Coptic Orthodox Church believes in caring for the environment as it's a gift from God. So, PLES collaborates with a diverse range of actors in Egypt to support the adaptation of climate action, including the Egyptian government, churches in different dioceses, private sector, and the NGOs. And PLES also primarily engage with the local communities in sustainable adaptation practice, working closely with local churches, municipalities, and other communities, development associations. And what happened in 2022? That PLES spearheaded efforts to issue a statement by the Coptic Orthodox Church on the importance of the protection of the environment, which is a huge, it's the first time that the Coptic Orthodox Church make like these kinds of statements to show how we are caring about the environment, and it's signed by the Bishop Tawadros itself. So. As I said, that our faith is driving our work in the climate change, and we believe that the human is a steward of the creation, and that comes from Genesis 2, verse 15, when it says, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it." At PLES, we try to do our share honoring this stewardship of creation by supporting the frontline communities to adapt to climate changes and mitigate them. And the second thing of our beliefs that we believe that putting people at the center of climate change adaptation work is very important, and that comes from the verse in the verse 7 in Proverbs 29, which says, "The righteous care about justice and poor." And one key element of this to act climate risks together with communities to co-create an adaptation plan, and from this, the ownership rests with the community. And as you can see, all the pictures here are from our people that we serve them. He looks happy. I wanted to highlight that PLES is focuses on locally led adaptation initiatives for addressing the climate risks, utilize participatory climate and disaster risk assessment tools like PACDR, emphasizes local solutions and awareness building over quick technology fixes, support communities in implementing adaptation plan through various actions and activities, promotes climate resilience, agriculture practices, resource saving technologies, and community empowerment, and co-creation of projects led to mutual learning between PLES and community members. And I wanted to speak more about the PACDR. It's since recently PLES is conducting a participatory assessment of climate and disaster risk, PACDR, and it's a tool for integrating climate and disaster risks into the community planning and development. And it's divided into phases. The first one is the assessment phase, and as you can see, we start with a kind of assessment, context assessment, then climate change and hazard analysis, vulnerability assessment, and response to the impact of. I can see. Okay. And all these steps, it's happening with the people themselves, the communities themselves. And then we move to the planning phase, which is they start to adopt strategies and co-benefit of the adaptation strategies. Then the happiest end is the community adaptation planning. They have a plan of what they need. And we can see some pictures from these the community assessment this, and this is one of the community members that analyzes the local climate risks and prioritize adaptation strategies themselves. Here you can see community member are the center of the adaptation process. And here you can see that the local faith leaders, even they are Christian or Muslim, are the center part or the central part of the process and facilitate the uptaking of community. And here the local faith residents explaining the adaptation strategies in the field. And finally, the community presents their adaptation strategy to decision makers. And we used this kind of analysis and we apply it in a small village in Egypt. It's called Jalila. And we come up with a very, very good results. And people are initiative so much, and they encourage too much to do to do what they are need, and they put their hands on what's the problems in their community and how to go to the stakeholders and raise up their voices and talk about the problems and make a good steps. And finally, I wanted to give you a brief on the two main programs that's working in Egypt in the PLUS. The first one is the Agriculture Development Program, which emphasizes the participatory knowledge sharing and innovations. And it focuses on the small farmers offering resilient seeds, sustainable soil fertility management, efficient irrigation systems, and crop protection. In addition to caring of the livestock. It's very important for the farmers in Egypt. And we introduced the solar-powered water pumps and drip irrigation models in 2024 in the Nile Valley. And we reached 33,000 men and 53,000 women in 44 villages between 2028 and 2023. 2018 to 2023. And for the environmental protection program, it promotes sustainable consumption of natural resources like water and energy. It's offering biogas units in rural areas and raises the awareness on waste recycling and reusing. Engage children in fun activities to promote sustainable practices at household and community levels. Advocates for safe waste management, tree planting, and street cleanliness. And we reached 77,000 men, 123,000 women, and 165,000 children in 59 communities between 2018 and 2023. And as you can see in the pictures, the first one with the red shirts, they are the girls making planting, and the one under is moving the garbage from the Nile. And in the middle one, this is the symbol of the biogas units that help people to cook and use the heaters with natural resources and benefit from the wastes. And at the end, some activities for the children. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Maries. You did a great job, and it was very interesting, I think, to see really, how rooted you are in those communities that you are serving, and that adaptation is often about basic services, right? If you are in very marginalized places, adaptation means just providing some basic services, and any tool that can show this and help these communities adapt more in all these ways that you have described, I think is exactly what we need. So now I would like to give the floor to our partner CCDB in Bangladesh, who are really one of our lighthouse partners, our key partners with their big climate change center. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Palash Sakar. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Ferdinand, for giving me the opportunity to represent my organization as well as my country, Bangladesh. And dear audience, panelists, good afternoon. So, I'm Palash Sarkar, working as coordinator under Climate Change Program of CCTV. Today I'm going to present on how Climate Adaptation Plan of Action is informing National Adaptation Plan, that's been the NAP. So, sorry. Before deep diving on my major topic, but at first I would like to talk about my country, Bangladesh. So you know Bangladesh is an innocent victim of climate change, and Bangladesh is a small country. Bangladesh is ranked 7th among the countries affected most due to climate change, but we are contributing only 0.48%. So the IPCC Year 5 report that estimates that increase in poverty of poverty 15% by 2030 due to the impacts of climate change. So if we talk about my organization, Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh, CCDB, established in 1973, holding the economical principle, just and caring society. Now we are working in 35 districts, that is half of the country, for food security, emergency response, poverty reduction, climate change, and resettlement program. So CCDB is a development organization holding the economical principle, addressing all the creation of God. CCTV includes people, nature, biodiversity, environment, and try to make a resilience approach for the vulnerable community. So in CCTV's resilience building approach, this is actually locally led approach towards resilience, and CCTV try to are facilitating to bring all the people, regardless age, regardless gender, regardless sex, religions, occupations, in adaptation actions. And through these adaptation actions, we are trying to connecting the life and livelihood of the vulnerable communities. And lastly, we are trying to establish the system, that is the resilience system, to transform the life and livelihood of the vulnerable community into climate resilient society. So CCTV has developed the guideline of the development of local adaptation plan for Bangladesh. This is similar to the PACDR, but it's not PACDR, but we take the experiences, we take the knowledge from the PACDR, as well as based on our context, based on our vulnerable communities and the global scenario and different tools, we have developed the local adaptation plan guideline. And it's a guideline that ensure adaptation measures address specific vulnerabilities and challenges that faced by the community people. And this approach nurtures the natural resources for the sustainable adaptation also. And obviously this LAPA, I mean the local adaptation plan of action, that align national policies with the community needs through actionable plans. So like PACDR, in PACDR there is two phases actually. This is the assessment and planning phase, but in LAPA, that is the local adaptation plan of action, this has three phases. One is assessment, definitely the planning, and the last one is validation and mainstreaming the LAPA into the national adaptation plan. So the assessment, that is the first page. This page, the community people, they are capacitized to develop to identify their own risks. And the planning phase, this is the second phase, and this phase ensured the incorporation and ensured the inclusion of the local context, local practices that is already doing by the community people. And the community people, they also identify the possible solution, adaptation options also. And the last, validation and mainstreaming phase, this phase incorporate the local adaptation plan of action, I mean the local demand, the community demand, the vulnerable people demand into the sectoral development plan of the government of Bangladesh. So if we talk about a little bit on National Adaptation Plan of Bangladesh, it's a 27 years plan which has significantly enhanced our adaptation ambitions. Through this plan, the country Bangladesh has been divided into 11 stress areas like the coastal areas, drought-prone areas, the hilly areas, considering the potential hazards like the flood, monsoon flood, salinity, excess heat, river erosion, landslide. So different hazards, that is 14 hazards. So in Napa, there are 113 interventions, and among the 113, 19 are getting a high priority and 23 are getting medium priority. And the total investment plan of the National Adaptation of Bangladesh is 230 billion US dollar. If I calculate in per year, it's 8 billion per year. So now I am going to describe the journey from local adaptation plan to national adaptation. It's a journey from local to national actually. So it's the implementation framework of local adaptation plan of action. In the presentation you found two color of arrows, the green, the yellow color that represents the planning from local to national, and the green color that represents the financing from national to local. So planning that can be initiated by the local people, and the government, they will ensure the financing to the local people. At the local level, the local community people, they are actively engaged in developing the LAPA, as well as they are part in the implementation also. The local only develop LAPA that will be validated by the local government as well as by the sub-district level authorities, and the sub-district level government agencies, they will incorporate this local adaptation plan of action into their annual development plan, as well as they are developing different projects based on the findings, based on the solutions mentioned in LAPA. Through the sub-district level annual development plan, LAPA will go up to the sectoral department, and then the sectoral ministries, and then the interministerial steering committee of climate change. In Bangladesh, there are interministerial steering committee on climate change, and this committee are aligning the LAPA with the national adaptation plan. And this committee can provide the technical feedback on the LAPA, and they will provide the preliminary approval on the LAPA and forward it to the planning ministry. So planning ministry is the highest authority to provide the final approval, and as well as they will arrange the financial arrangement, and they will make a financial plan for the LAPA implementation, and they will identify the sources from international as well as national. And after arranging the finance from the national and international sources, then the finance will be go through from sectoral ministry to department, then the sub-national, and finally to the community people. So this is the whole journey of the LAPA from local to national, and the process that ensure that the voice of the community people, voice of the vulnerable people, voice of the youth, voice of the different people from different religions that are heard by the government authorities, heard by the other authorities, the demand that get priority, and definitely the implementation that the locally led. So what is the role of CCDB, my organization? As a development organization, as a faith-based organization, we are facilitating to develop the people-centered local adaptation plan of action. As well as we are trying to enhancing the understanding of the community people, the local actors, local stakeholders, including the public and private sector. And at the local level, we also facilitating to incorporate local adaptation plan of action into the local sectoral planning that the annual adaptation plan of sub-district level. We also do advocacy at the national level for policy formulation. We are building the capacity of the national actors, not only the government officials but also the other NGOs who believe in developing the capacity of the local community people in developing the local adaptation plan. And we are also sensitizing the government official on LAPA implementation. Of course, there is a few challenges, and at first I would like to mention the capacity constraint. The facilitator that has a lack of expertise and knowledge for effective adaptation planning, and that is a challenge at the local level as well as the stakeholder coordination. At the local level there are multiple government bodies, so this is challenge to make a coordination among the stakeholders. And policy alignment, of course, this is a challenge. The country like Bangladesh is a developing country, and they have different development priorities. So it's a challenge to aligning the adaptation, local adaptation plan into the other policy, other development priorities. And the last but not least, the challenge that is climate uncertainty. Actually, that's all from my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Palash. It's amazing also how well integrated you are with the government planning structures, and I think this is also due to the fact maybe that Bangladesh is so gravely affected already by climate changes, and it will hopefully become like that in other countries soon as well. That we have a more active interest by government, by local and national government, to this work like CCDBs that's been done already. So speaking of a functioning government, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Sarah Sava from Gopaderd in Syria, where there are a whole set of other challenges to local adaptation.
There we go. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this year at COP29, and also a pleasure to be joining Ferdinand's voice in this very well-prepared pavilion, the Faith Pavilion. And we have a really great chance to showcase the work that we are doing in Syria as Gopaderd. So to really jump into the topic, Gopaderd is the largest faith-based or church-based organization in Syria, currently covering the whole country. We work all across the governorates, 14 governorates inside the country, and each year we help about 5 million people of direct and indirect beneficiaries. As you can see, we have 1,600 staff members, more than 23 offices, 59 service centers, 20 international partners, and when I say international, I mean UN and INGO partners that we work with bilaterally in different humanitarian sectors. We have been vetted as a low-risk organization, and also we became members of the CHS Alliance last year. We work in different humanitarian sectors, like I mentioned, health, education, shelter, CBI, CBOs, WASH, food and NFIs, rent assistance. But more importantly, we work in protection as well, child protection, gender-based violence, PSS, but also we work in early recovery and livelihood programs. We focus on vocational training and providing toolkits. on small business startup grants, and on cash and voucher assistance. If we focus more on the early recovery sector and how it's interlinked with climate change and climate action, we today have many challenges in Syria, which, as you all may know already, it's a 13, now entering into 14 years of protracted crisis. We have climate change, the top of our challenges, of course. We have high inflation of the Syrian pound, which is the local currency. The conflict, of course, as I said, is 13 years old. We have conflict, not only war conflict, but also conflict over the remaining very scarce resources. We have increase as such in market prices and basic needs. So you can imagine with the climate change crisis, we also have challenge very much in the basic needs that the people cannot really today afford, because today Syrians can barely afford food on the table, let alone pay rent and provide medicine with the inflation of the Syrian pound. And of course, fuel shortage, very famous and popular in Syria today. Lack of electricity means lack of functioning infrastructure, lack of functioning facilities inside the country that are or should be used so that the people in the country, or the citizens or the affected people, can actually go on by their day-to-day lives. In Syria today, in GoPaDerd, we focus so much on climate action through our programs. We do know that we have many priorities, but we cannot neglect that the disasters happening all over the world that have to do with climate change are also affecting crisis-affected countries like Syria. So even though it's a small country, but then the action that we do, we believe, is very large to combat climate change. One of our missions is, of course, addressing climate crisis by bridging the gap with climate action. It's very important to us, in addition, of course, to the other missions, such as reducing poverty, ensuring and preserving human dignity, gender justice, etc. Our mission today, as I said, encourages beneficiaries to build climate change adaptation and mitigation. Very important for us, adaptation and mitigation into their daily lives through climate action programs. It's an integral part of building resilient societies and, of course, reducing poverty on the long run. Because we are a church-based organization, we very much believe in speaking up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Syrians today cannot be with me. They cannot join me on this platform. It's 2024. We have 16.7 million people in need in Syria, which is an increase from last year's figure, the year before that, and the year before that. 4 years ago, the number was 13.5. Can you imagine? From 13.5 all the way up to 16.7. We also believe that we are motivated by our faith to care for the creation of God, the same way that He has created it for us on this planet that we live in. We have to preserve it. So because it's threatened, we really have to do our best to care for it. And we do so by focusing on the poor and vulnerable communities around the world, especially in Syria, because they are the ones who are affected much by the crisis, even though they are the least contributing to it. This takes us to the whole global north, global south dialogue and discussion. This is why we believe that justice, because it's written in scripture, makes it easier for us to implement. In GoPaDerd, we focus on many SDGs, one of which is climate action, which is number 13. And we take very serious program design to ensure that it's integrated in many of the sectors, such as early recovery and livelihood, but also in protection as well, to protect the marginalized groups, such as women. How do we do that? So how do we advocate for climate justice? And how do we adapt and mitigate climate change in our programs? Well, if we look at our programs today, we notice that humanitarian programs work on shock-responsive social protection systems, such as the preparedness of early recovery and resilience-building activities. If we begin by community-based initiatives, our programs focus on, for example, helping the community themselves to plant trees, or let's say afforestation in their areas of residence, because going through a 13-year-old crisis in Syria wasn't easy. It still isn't easy. There has been not only natural disaster activities that led to loss and damage, but also it was human caused, right? By the conflict, by the armed groups. So we always encourage people to do that, to focus on their areas and their neighborhoods by planting trees, by fixing the public parks, by doing maintenance work, of course, waste management, which I've heard from my colleagues before, especially in Egypt, and raising, of course, community awareness. We also very much help communities, especially women, who have become the heads of household, who have lost their husbands or that their husbands have gone missing, with cash and voucher assistance. And for us in Syria, because we had an earthquake last year in February, we thought and we saw at the end of the day how cash assistance has really helped people in emergency response to lift them immediately from this crisis. So because we saw it in the earthquake last year, we believe that with climate disasters as well, it will be very much needed. We also believe in-kind assistance to protect livelihoods with a focus on women, as I said. When we speak about adaptation and mitigation, we have lots of co-benefits, including integrating the solar panels through our programs. So today we provide solar panels for wells that we dig and equip. We give solar panels for beneficiaries who have received grants, business startup grants, so that they can start their business, especially if they have small shops. And of course, we have solar power generators not only for wells, but for other projects that we give to beneficiaries. Today, for example, we have many campaigns across the country to try to change the culture. Instead of driving a car, to lower your carbon footprint, you can start by riding a bicycle. And today in Syria, I wrote a blog last year that explained how Syrians, without knowing it, without putting a label on it, are already adapting to climate change because they have reached a point with the depreciation of the Syrian pound, with the loss of jobs, with no money, with no food on the table, with nothing to do but manage to survive. In fact, this is to put it in simple words, they have been adapting to climate change without naming it. They can no longer afford to ride cars. No one in Syria today, like the majority of the Syrians, 90% live under the poverty line. So you see 90% of Syrians today riding bicycles because they cannot afford fuel and they cannot afford buying cars or riding cars. Of course, we also have nature-based solutions for resource management, such as the maintenance of irrigation and drainage systems rehabilitation, land rehabilitation as well, especially for farmers, pond water management, and well digging and equipping. We also provide emergency response to natural disasters, as I just mentioned, for example, the earthquake or the fires that we witnessed 2 years ago. Distribution of agri-kits for farmers. So today we encourage organic farming, so organic seedlings, and organic farming equipment as well. And we make sure that we, let's say, encourage farmers to adapt to climate change by making sure that they have crops that are resilient to drought, for instance, especially in the northeast of the region. We also encourage women to go ahead and do home gardens. We distribute, of course, organic food items. And again, the focus is always on women to ensure we have gender justice. So how does GoPaDirt's planning and preparedness look like? Well, today our programming strategy has 3 parts: emergency response, and then we have early recovery and livelihood and sustainable development. When it comes to climate change, of course, we can start at the emergency response level, but then we are deeply experienced in moving that more into early recovery and then sustainable livelihoods, depending on the situation on the ground and the unveiling of events. As you can see here with a few sharing of pictures, we help people in communities to plant trees. We help children as well to learn more about climate change and the impacts of climate change and how that is affecting their future as well, because let's face it, children will become youth and youth will become the new generations. So we have to do something for them. We have to build the base that they will one day rely on to save the country. We also teach children about the impacts by doing practical experiments so that they are more, aware of it and it sticks to their memory, to their heads. We also teach them about mitigation so that they care for their plants at home and in school as well. We help farmers a lot, as I mentioned before, because Syria is an agricultural land through history. It has the red soil, it's famous for the red soil, and it's famous for the 4 seasons. So in Syria, you don't really need to put any pesticides or hormones into crops. They just grow naturally through the sunlight, through the 4 seasons, and through rain, etc. So we help farmers adapt to climate change by modern agricultural methods, as I mentioned earlier, reducing the use of pesticides and chemical fertilizers, replacing it with organic fertilizers, as well as using biological enemies to reduce the impact and use of chemical pesticides. We also raise their awareness on the importance of using and reducing plastic products. This is very important, especially for organic farming. If I want to conclude, and to be brief and not to take much of your time to allow for more Q&A later on, we have one message today in COP29. We urge the adaptation finance that should be oriented to the needs of the people on the ground, because they are the ones that are on the front line with the climate crisis. The farmers are on the front line. They are the grassroots. So today, whenever something happens, let's say when a disaster hits, especially if it's a climate disaster, it's going to the people who will save, let's say, their country, right? It's the people on the ground, it's the farmers, those who have experience in dealing with such crises. It's not us, behind our desks or sitting here in a meeting who will be, let's say, on the ground when something happens. So this is why for us in Syria, it's really important to make sure that this is reflected in the new NCQGs, as Ferdinand said earlier, because this must increase and simplify direct access to climate change finance for developing countries like Syria, but also for the most vulnerable communities on the front line of climate change. They should have more direct access to finance and not have finance be, let's say, on a much bigger level, and then you will have one drop of it reach the beneficiaries. As GoPaDIRD, we are non-governmental and we work directly with the people as an organization. And this is one example. Today, when big amount of millions, billions of dollars or whatever currency is going to the state, which is fair enough, of course, because they have much larger scale projects. But I assure you, a very small percent goes to the people on the ground that they need it the most. Very small percent. This is why we urge these finances to come to organizations working on the ground, because the impact that we see to do climate action is much bigger so far than the impact we see, or even the steps that have been taken so far that are very minimal from state actors in the region as a whole. Thank you so much for listening, and I give the floor now to Ferdinand.
Thank you, Sarah, for these good wrapping up words in the end. And on top of that, for showcasing what is possible despite everything that has been happening in Syria, this country so ravaged by conflict. Now, I promised you some interaction here, so I hope you are still with us after nearly an hour of presentation. So we have a microphone here, and would like to invite you to ask any questions to our speakers, if you have. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So, yes.
Thank you for all the presentations. I would like to ask the speakers from Egypt and Syria if there is also cooperation between them, and also on regional level, because the common voice and the common action could bring more cooperation between faith communities and states, because there are initiatives now in Mediterranean with the European Union, and they give billions. And how can we get the involvement of the faith communities and not only the states? Because as one of you mentioned, very little is going to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I just want to say that, yes, for example, we, GoPedard and Bless, are part of the ACT Alliance. So we are members of the Climate Justice Working Group. It has brought us together so that we, sit in such settings and discuss, how better we as faith-based actors can raise our voice in order to draw attention to the needs that we showed you in the presentation. But I will personally take your tip into consideration so that we coordinate better in the future, so that if there are more platforms that we are unaware of, perhaps we can join efforts and join forces to raise our voices even higher. Would you like to add something?
Yes, I totally agree with what Sarah said. And I wanted to mention that because we are members in ACT Alliance, we also share our experience together, which is good. There is no the ideal collaboration that should be happen, yani, but we are trying to in the next time to be more collaborative. But we share experience, we share ideas, we know about what they are doing and what we are working on. So and we have the same, as you said, we have the same challenges and the same dreams. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I might add, Father, that there was a symposium on eco-theology by the Middle East Council of Churches last year, also for the first time that all the faith actors in the Middle East region came together to discuss what does climate change mean to us as a faith community. So there is a starting movement and things are moving towards more collaboration, but it needs some more impetus. And I think we can learn a lot from the other regions that we're presenting here today. Any other questions?
I am Father Ando from India. See, climate change has become a serious concern. And we all discuss. And my concern only one. If it is a so serious concern, can we the interfaith groups, different parts of the world come together and in a top apex model, then to the dropping down to the grassroots level. So my concern, it is an urgent need. All the faith-based organizations should come together to collaborate and share the expertise and combat this serious concern that we are facing. We have fund, we can make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Father, for this call. We'd like to join it. This is why we're here at the Faith Pavilion. Maybe after the event you can link up, and I think this is what we're all here for. So the next question, please, and then I think we have to end in 5 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mine is actually not a question. It's just that I'm excited to see what faith actors are doing, especially the presentation by Christian Aid. I'm part of the Green Anglicans movement. So I want to affirm that indeed there is a lot happening and the faith communities are doing something. I'm from Eswatini, the smallest country in the southern hemisphere. And the impact done by the Anglican Church in Eswatini through the Green Anglicans movement is so significant. And I was so much fascinated to notice that party actors from my country, 5 of them, they are from my church. So of which the aspect of faith and environment is key. So mine is to say, let's keep on doing something in as much as our voices are seem to be little, but the impact is indeed seen. And I affirm or I agree to the last speaker, especially the part of saying finance should go to the people on the ground, and faith communities are found even in the smallest street, in the smallest country, everywhere in the world or in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, there's one more question. We take one last question, okay? And then we'll have a round of closing words from our speakers.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Mohammad Faizullah Talukdar, working as a head of climate change program from Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh. We have been participating in different interfaith dialogue as well as faith meetings. And from the previous realization, I found that we are working a lot with the poor and vulnerable people. Those are mostly climate victims, but not climate polluters. How interfaith group and faith-based community can work very strongly with the climate polluters, because climate change adaptation has no limit, but mitigation has limit. Considering this principle, how interfaith and faith-based groups can target to make the planet safe for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I got it correctly, it's how can faith actors also engage in addressing polluters to do more for mitigation, correct? Is there any takes on anyone who wants to respond?
I think it depends on the relation between these faith groups and the government, and the bonds between the governmental authorities and these groups. We make together collaborative work and initiatives to work for the polluters, not for the marginalized people that they are not polluters. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Just to add on that, I think it's quite critical. I mentioned when I was doing my presentation, particularly on the issue of the knowledge gap, which I think we stand a better position to help in filling that, so that in gatherings such as the COP now here, the faith actors should have a platform and a voice that would inform decisions and policies that are made in such kind of spaces. At times, we realize that decisions are made even though the faith actors participate, but there is no substantial contribution because of limited capacity or the knowledge gap that exists. So then, if that can be done at the country level, then we will be able to now have a stronger faith actors who are coming through one voice, then to be able to inform or influence certain decisions that will advance actions of mitigations and adaptation at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, as we need to close our session, I just wanted to give everyone here the chance to say a closing statement and no more than 5 words. Just 5 words. What's your message to the audience and to this COP? Palash.
Okay, just hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Just want to say one thing. Always we consider the local people as target or beneficiary group, and the decision taken by others. I think we should consider the local people as a decision maker. Thank you.
My closing remarks is that climate change is a threat now to humanity, and as the world negotiates on matters climate change, then of course there should be some level of empathy as a consideration, as well as the realization that we are dealing with a life-threatening situation which must be addressed in a sober way.
What I want to say that our role is to serve and preserve. We have to serve each other and preserve the God's creation. And what I wanted to say is climate change not stop and not wait anyone. So the finance can be on time and fastly. Thank you.
Thank you, Maris. I just want to conclude by saying that climate action is not possible if we don't focus on grassroots level. And let's face it, politicians do the talking and we do the working. So let's walk the walk and let's focus on the grassroots level to ensure that we do reach climate justice sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Maybe give a round of applause to our panel. Thank you so much. And there are another 8 minutes to connect and speak. speak to each other before we go into the next session?
I wanted to say something. We have flyers for Plus. We can take it from here, and a special gift. It's the keychain. You can take it from here. That's have the QR code of our platforms in Plus Egypt. Thank you so much.
Take a picture. Can we take a picture together? Yes. Can we take a picture together? Can we?
Colleagues from Michael Beale, Michael Beale. Yeah, very good friend, exactly. Amazing. They just want to have a picture now. Okay. Yes. I have talked to you last